A 10-year-old rape survivor who was impregnated by her own uncle now fights the system. Her pregnancy was discovered very late, only after she complained of a stomachache. Doctors advised her parents to approach the courts seeking permission to terminate the unwanted pregnancy. But the Chandigarh District Court turned her down.
उसकी एज है जी 10 साल 6 महीने, वो क्लास 6 में स्टूडेंट है वो। उसका कोर्ट का भी मैटर चल रहा है, उसके ऊपर मैं कमेंट नहीं कर सकता क्योंकि मैटर सब जुडिस है, उसके ऊपर भी नहीं बताया जा सकता, मैटर सेंसिटिव होने की वजह से। अक्यूज्ड इसमें जी कुल बहादुर है, वो इनके रिलेशन से ही है, इनका रिलेटिव है।
The doctors examining the rape survivor notified the court that the 10-year-old's pelvic bones were too weak to sustain a full-term pregnancy. And while a normal delivery is ruled out, even a cesarean section at such a tender age is dangerous.
It was really heart-wrenching issue, and I really felt very disturbed because we as a society, all of us have failed in protecting our own child who is only of 10 years of age. So I immediately thought that I'll definitely bring this to the notice of Honorable Supreme Court of India.
The Apex Court will now examine the 10-year-old girl's case who is 27 weeks pregnant. As per the abortion law which was introduced in 1971, the Constitution does not allow termination of pregnancy beyond 20 weeks unless doctors confirm that the mother's life is in danger. As the debate over abortion law rages on, we ask, shouldn't the law take into consideration the plight of rape survivors and give them the right to choose? Mira Now report.
Well, here's the question that we are asking tonight in our country. A 10-year-old who is 26 weeks pregnant has to approach the Supreme Court to ask for permission to have an abortion. Just saying that sentence tonight is shocking to me. That a 10-year-old rape survivor who was being repeatedly raped and then impregnated has to now go from court to court to seek permission to abort. Why are we putting this child in this position? Why is it that the laws in our country with regard to abortion and with regard to women were framed in 1971? Have we not in any way improved our understanding of the human body since 1971? Shouldn't our laws also be upgraded? Is it not ridiculous that the only way this 10-year-old child can hope for a safe or a seemingly normal life again is to knock on the doors of the Supreme Court? How outdated are our laws? How outdated is our thinking? That's the question we're asking this evening. That while the Supreme Court examines this matter, isn't it also time that we examine the laws in general? Especially ones that were written in 1971, where our understanding of not just the human body, but our understanding of criminal law and our understanding of just women was outdated. Our phone lines are open to you viewers, and so is our new method of communication, which is involve.in. I will tell you how to do that, but first let me introduce our guest this evening, Karuna Nundy. I'm so proud to have her here on the panel this evening. Is a very senior lawyer with the Supreme Court. Alakh Alok Srivastava is the petitioner in this specific case. We also have Ramakanth Gaur, senior lawyer, Supreme Court. Dr. Rishma Pai is the president of the Federation of OBGYN, or called FOGSI. Dr. Abha Majumdar, senior consultant, Department of OBGYN at Sri Ganga Ram Hospital. Dr. Nikhil Datar is the senior gynecologist and a health rights activist. He's a medical legal expert. Dr. Samir Dalwai is the president of the Mumbai branch of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics and He's also a child's rights activist. Sujay Kantawala, senior lawyer, joins me in the studio. Viewers, if you have an opinion on this, involve.in, you can log on. All you have to do is click on Urban Debate under Mirror Now and leave your question, or leave a comment that you want to add to this conversation. Comments will pop up on the screen automatically as you'll see them through the course of the conversation. I want to open this up for arguments right now. The shocking case that we are currently addressing. Karuna Nundy, I'm going to start with you. A 10-year-old who has to knock on the doors of the Supreme Court because our laws were written in 1971.
I think it's sad, Faye, it's a travesty that the slow action of various governments since 1971 in amending that law has resulted in so many lives being jeopardized in this very serious way. I think it's very, very sad and problematic. Now that this 10-year-old child's case has, you know, outraged so many people, and obviously outrage can't be the only basis for legal change, but I think that it does in particular cases where it's very clear that an individual's rights have been so severely violated. It should put pressure on the government to do something it was already doing, right? And what needs to happen is that those provisions need to be examined in light of the fact that the Supreme Court has said in cases of abortion, it has highlighted the need for the bodily integrity of the woman to be taken seriously. When there is a child and when her health is being jeopardized, I can't see that there should be any question at all that that the fetus should be allowed to be aborted if it is in her best interests. Yes, I mean, so I think absolutely the top priority right now is to amend the law.
To amend the law, absolutely. I want to bring in every voice on this panel. Alakh Srivastava is the petitioner in this case. Alakh's been fighting this case. Alakh, it's obviously heart-wrenching for everyone who's listening to this story right now. But from the time that it was discovered that this child of 10 years is pregnant, the time that also gets spent then approaching the High Court and then the Supreme Court, this is all precious time because time is of the essence here. Every week, every day that passes endangers this life even further.
You are very right, and that is what exactly I have stated in my PIL also. Unfortunately, in our country, we are witnessing many such cases in the recent times where very small aged girls are getting impregnated by after subjected to regular rape. So what I have prayed in my PIL also, except this, not only this particular case when a 10-year-old girl is involved and she is now pregnant by more than 26 weeks, I have also prayed in my PIL that because there is a legislative vacuum, the law of 1971, which you have rightly said, that is not getting amended by the government and now 45 years have elapsed. So when there is a legislative vacuum, many a times the Supreme Court has intervened and passed certain guidelines or laws in order to fulfill that legislative vacuum. So in this case also I have prayed in my PIL that not only you give justice to the girl who is involved in this case, who is the subject of this case, but also you pass general guidelines to ensure that in every district of India there is a permanent medical board constituted comprising of the best doctors and specialists of that particular subject matter in that board, so that whenever a matter is reported of particularly of a child rape to a police station, immediately that matter is taken to the magistrate, and magistrate without wasting any time reports it to the concerned district board, medical board, and the medical board gives a very authentic and a genuine report that whether the termination of pregnancy is permissible or not. And I'll definitely add here that I have also prayed in my PIL that Section 3 of the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971 has to be very carefully amended so far as the cases of child rape survivors are concerned. Considering their plight and ordeal, we need to amend this law. And so far as this particular case is concerned, I would like to share with everyone that in this case now we have reached to such a difficult situation and such a unique situation where the pregnancy of the child has already reached to a very, very advanced stage. So termination, I don't know what tomorrow Chandigarh, PGI Chandigarh doctors and board of doctors are going to opine, but termination at this stage may be risky for her, and continuation of pregnancy and childbirth is also going to be risky for her for two basic reasons. One is the girl's age is only 10 years, so her pelvic bones are very weak. Her condition is not that she'll be able to give a normal childbirth. So this is such a situation where doctors will be assessing tomorrow, and definitely court will also assess on Friday when the matter is next listed, that what can be the safest and best way to save the life of this girl child. But my point is that this case is definitely very, very sensitive, heart-wrenching, and this has to be taken care by most sincere and sensitive approach. But we also have to take care of many, many such cases which are taking place in our country day-to-day basis.
Right. You know, I want to also ask you, Alakh, since you are the only one right now who knows the victim or personally, obviously the mental trauma of all of this having been, you know, a survivor of rape and repeated rape, then discovering one is pregnant, then having to go to district court, having to go to Supreme Court. We understand she's going to have to appear in court as well. The mental trauma of having to go through all of that at the age of 10. What is the family saying to you right now? What is the state of you know, of the mind of the victim?
See, I can't disclose much about the child or what the family is saying, but I can only say that they are extremely disturbed. In one hand, they are facing a extreme level of crime which has been committed to their daughter. They really want justice. They want the rapist to be hanged till death very soon. And in another hand, they also have to fight with the medical condition and this pregnancy of the child. One thing I'll definitely share with you, that so far as my information is concerned, the family is definitely inclined that childbirth is not
an option.
Required. They are really inclined that the pregnancy is terminated in the best possible medical facilities. But my point is that because the pregnancy has already reached to an advanced stage, so I don't know whether tomorrow doctors are going to opine for continuation of pregnancy and childbirth. Family is, in a nutshell, definitely praying that the pregnancy is medically terminated in the safer way, and they are also praying that the rapist gets harshest possible punishment.
All right, let me bring in the medical experts at this point. Dr. Rishma Pai, from what you've heard so far, what's your opinion?
I think this case is particularly difficult. Both ways we have risk of complications and problems occurring. However, in a 10-year-old girl, a pregnancy progressing to term seems to be an absolute no. This child's bones, pelvis, system is just not developed enough to be able to carry a baby to full term. Even though the pregnancy is very advanced, I wish we could have offered a help earlier. But since we can't, and the pregnancy is so advanced, I still feel we should be able to offer her a solution at this point. Because not only is the actual point of delivery difficult, but also there's a very high risk of complications such as pregnancy-induced hypertension, which occur very often in young girls like her. So what if in the later stage she develops significant high blood pressure, which can be life-threatening for her, the whole delivery process, her bone structure, her psychological health. See, earlier she wasn't even aware that she's pregnant. Now that she's aware she's pregnant, she's going through this whole trauma. To ask her to carry this on for another 2 or 3 months might be extremely and irreversibly psychologically traumatic for her. So I think we need to offer her a solution now.
Offer a solution now. Dr. Abha Majumdar, at the end, you know, we keep talking about pro-life, pro-choice, whether it should be a personal choice. I just saw Kavish from Lucknow leave a message for us saying, isn't this a personal choice? But after 20 weeks, as we understand, according to our law, it's not a personal choice. You have to get the opinion, you have to get permission from the courts. But here we're talking about a 10-year-old, and it just shocks me that a 10-year-old is having to ask for permission to get an abortion.
Are you asking me this question?
Yes, Dr. Majumdar, do you believe that yes, go ahead. Do you believe that this 10-year-old would be safer in any way if she carried this pregnancy to term?
First thing is, there is no way she can carry it to term. And you know, the question of an abortion doesn't come. Abortion means to abort a child through the natural genital tract. There is no question this girl can go through it. A cesarean is equally very risky now. Every passing day is taking her closer to more and more complications, and hence we need to decide very fast, do a cesarean, remove this baby so that, you know, this girl can at least survive the trauma. I don't think she'll ever come out of, but the mental trauma, but physical trauma possibly we can reduce for her by hastening the whole process. We cannot delay it anymore. The baby might survive at this stage when it's born. Most of the nurseries are capable of surviving this baby. But at this time, there is a question of 2 babies, a 10-year-old and maybe a 27 or 28-weeker by the time she gets justice and she's allowed to deliver her baby or have it operated, have herself operated and have the baby delivered.
Sujay?
So we need to take her away from the, you know, hands of complications and maybe death also.
Maybe death as well. You know, and I just want to inform our panelists, if you want to come in at any point of this panel, please, you know, gesture to me, put your hand up so I know you want to say something. Sujay, go ahead.
So on one hand, you have the physiological part, which our doctors on our panel have said that this is extremely critical and dangerous. And on the other hand, we are dealing with an act which has actually become otious because it has, I think, outlived its utility with the changing times. So the Supreme Court, in its extraordinary jurisdiction, and hats off to Mr. Srivastava to take up this this plea, because it's such a burning issue, and being a part of the legal fraternity, I look up to him today that he's taking up, because now the matter is before the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice has immediately issued directions on and tomorrow and day after. But now, once Supreme Court passes an order, I would also hope that the Supreme Court lays down guidelines. Because what is happening is that when you have these acts which are outdated, the Supreme Court can iron out the creases and in its advisory jurisdiction, advise the government, because there is an Attorney General of India appearing in the Supreme Court. And once and for all, we cannot have repeat cases like this. We cannot wait for the slow motion of the law and thereafter this kind of 26-27 week period. We have to see and ensure that in such unfortunate and appalling cases, immediate action is taken and there is a remedy available. And I'm glad that the Supreme Court has taken it upon itself in public interest and in its jurisdiction, which is across India. So now we will not have any issue. The Supreme Court will hear all the lawyers, maybe an NGO also. They will all assist the Supreme Court, and let us have once and for all a guideline laid down by the highest court of the land.
Right. I also want to bring in Dr. Datar. Dr. Nikhil Datar, the truth is that from 1971, our understanding of OBGYN with this entire process of any time after 20 weeks being unsafe, the fact that we've changed, or our understanding of this entire process is improved, and unfortunately our laws have not kept pace.
Yeah, you are absolutely right that the understanding is completely different today. Now it's almost a myth to believe that termination late after 20 weeks is risky to the life of the woman. It is not. And that's why most of the countries, particularly developing countries, they have moved away from the old laws, and some countries they are allowing up to 24, 26, 28 weeks. Most of those countries, there are about 100 odd countries in the world where there is actually speaking no limit in terms of termination of pregnancy, in terms of weeks of pregnancy, provided that the indication is genuine and truthful. So I really speaking do not understand this particular issue as to if at all one compares her current situation vis-a-vis the delivery. Both are risky, we understand that, but which is lesser risky? So if you ask me the question which is lesser risky medically speaking, then terminating her pregnancy right now by doing an abdominal surgery called as hysterectomy is the safest alternative that is available. And I think that is the alternative that has to be taken, and this pregnancy has to be terminated. I once again want to congratulate Mr. Nundy for taking up this particular public interest litigation. And I also must say that more or less similar kind of demands have been made by me in my SLP called Dr. Nikhil Datar versus Government of India way back in 2008, whereby for certain indications we want the extension of 20 weeks. And I completely agree with this fact that the women in this particular country have to keep on going again and again to the court for asking permission. This week or the next week, we will be seeing 4 cases getting filed in the Supreme Court seeking the relief for termination of pregnancy going beyond 20 weeks. And how many more women you want to reach the Supreme Court with the same plea, and when are we really going to wake up and make a change in our law? Whether it is the Supreme Court giving the guidelines or whether it is the Government of India amending the existing age-old MTP law, how many more victims of the law do you want to create, and do you need for it to awaken the country to make a change in the law, make a change in the life of the women? That's the plain simple question, and which is what you started with, and I am completely in agreement with that.
We all agree with this fact that the Supreme Court, we are all looking up to the Supreme Court, the majesty of the court, and we are all hopeful that the Supreme Court will lay down guidelines, because enough is enough now, and we cannot keep on having, and it's not easy to approach the Supreme Court. Believe you me, I'm talking as a lawyer, and my brothers and sisters are also on the panel. They will also concur with the fact that it's not easy to approach the Supreme Court. And now that the matter is before the Supreme Court should make justice easily accessible at the lowest level. And with the guidelines issued, I'm sure things will kick in.
Right. I'm of the opinion that why should you have to go to the court every time? Abortion or termination of pregnancy, or the patient is already so traumatized as it is. On top of it, it's such a personal matter. You don't want to tom-tom it in every single media space that is available.
It's termination of pregnancy
between the patient and her doctor, not having to have this whole
termination of pregnancy as a result of rape on a minor. I mean, the fact that this even falls into the category of ask permission from the court, and the fact that one court has already turned this person down. So she's have to now go to the Supreme Court and endure the personal trauma of having to tell the story over and over again. It's just shocking. And simply to have to travel from Chandigarh to Delhi in this condition.
Exactly. This case is absolutely traumatic, but many other cases. Any woman who's carrying a child who has a fatal abnormality, for example, or any other rape survivor, even if older than this child, any situation is uniquely traumatic to that particular patient. I don't see why they should be subjected to so much trauma. It should be between the patient and her doctor, and it should be sorted out at that problem. And as the Federation of Gynaecologists of India, we've in fact been appealing for a long time now that we need to relook at these laws. The MTP law needs to be strengthened. It needs to be relooked at. And it's been going on for quite a while, this debate.
You know, the thing, and I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that this is the conversation we're having, because I was sitting down with my team, we were deciding who we should invite onto the panel. Obviously, we have to have gynecologists, but we also have to have a pediatrician, because the person in question is a child of 10 years old. This is, I mean, it is shocking that we have a panel of gynecologists talking about a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old who should be under the jurisdiction of a pediatrician. This is what is so horribly wrong with this entire problem. Samir Dalwai, this is why you are on the panel.
No, I'd like to convey the sense of horror and despair on behalf of all pediatricians, on behalf of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, as to what we are actually dealing with, and you put it so rightly. In 2007, the Indian Academy of Pediatrics had come out with the guidelines on recognition and response to child abuse. But unfortunately, if you see in this case, 27 weeks have gone by after she has conceived, and still it hasn't been picked up. So this is the first alarm bell that's ringing up. Okay, why was this not picked up? Of course, we know it's very difficult. Nobody would expect it to happen. But this is why we need to bring in this awareness in society, amongst parents, amongst doctors, pediatricians, to look for signs of child abuse. Going back to that same guideline, there's another guideline by the United Nations, UNICEF, which says that eventually when you are in a dilemma of what to do with this the child who has been a victim or a survivor of sexual assault, the dictum is always act in the best interest of the child. So I don't think we should get caught in the law here, because I don't know why we are talking about the MTP Act, because we are not talking about abortion. We are already, the child has carried on the pregnancy to 27 weeks, and the other flip side is that we know 27, 28 weeks is the age at which the fetus survives outside. So my point is, why are we talking about an abortion ending the life? That's not the issue at all. Here we have to focus on this child. She has been the victim of sexual assault and abuse. Today, the moment we know it, we need to relieve her. There is no question that she can continue physically this pregnancy, physically as well as mentally. And once we know that, like I agree with Dr. Majumdar, there should be a cesarean attempted immediately, that the 10-year-old child should be looked after, and it's not only a physical condition. She will need intensive counseling for I don't know how long. But let's not forget this, the moment tomorrow we go ahead,
this is also
let's
a
not forget her own mental
health,
and how we are going to help her deal with this for the rest of her life. So I would say that let's have this done with as soon as possible, and focus back on this 10-year-old and give her the best possible counseling, best possible care for the rest of her childhood and till whatever time it's taken.
I think it is also a right to life.
Yes, you know, the doctors here, and these are they're at the top of their professions, are all in agreement unanimously that this should have been done as quickly as possible. The fact that we are still talking about it, we're losing precious time with every passing day. Alakh Srivastava,
yes,
you approached the Chandigarh District Court that denied permission. On what grounds? Please tell us on what grounds was the permission denied?
Yes, see, I'll tell you the problem which these kind of people are facing, these kind of victims are actually facing across India is, there is a law, MTP Act 1971, which says that if it exceeds 20 weeks, then it is not permissible in normal circumstances. So courts their hands are tied. The lower courts are reluctant in breaching that law and passing some extraordinary orders. And that is why these cases are traveling to Supreme Court. The Chandigarh court basically dismissed, the lower court of Chandigarh basically dismissed on 2 grounds. One was the medical board opinion, which was taken from a government hospital, a small time hospital, that suggested that this is not a fit case for termination. And again, there was a bar of 20 weeks which was there. So those 2 grounds were there. But you have seen that when it reached to Supreme Court said that no, we'll definitely assess it and we'll see if it is in the best interest of child to terminate the pregnancy even now. But I would like to share a very crucial point with all of you. Yes. There is a very, very crucial point which is deeply rooted in this problem. I'll tell you, in this particular case, the issue was reported to the police in the 25th week itself. So we can't leave the parents clean. We can't let the parents go just unblamed. I'll tell you, parents are also required in our society, because now these kind of cases are taking place on everyday basis. So parents are also required to
check their 10-year-old is pregnant. How can you blame these parents?
I'm not blaming the parents. I'm not blaming the parents.
Think that a 10-year-old is pregnant?
What parent is checking? What parent is checking that their 10-year-old may or may not be pregnant? How is this?
Kindly allow me to kindly allow me to
blaming the parent who's going through this kind of trauma.
And if you're telling me that it was reported to the police on when the child was 25 weeks.
10-year-old is such a tender age.
So that is why I'm telling you.
Yes, go ahead.
Kindly let me complete.
Yes, go ahead.
Let me complete. What I'm telling you is, we cannot only blame the police, we cannot only blame the doctors, we cannot only blame the judicial system. We also have to blame ourselves as a society. I think I just want to put this before this panel. We also have to see that how, as a society, we can be vigilant, and we can be always careful while looking around ourselves, and to ensure that we also take adequate this kind of safety and care. We also are careful to ensure that we also play our role.
These guests who come home.
Yeah.
This uncle misused his liberty to come home and repeatedly rape this girl.
Sujay,
it is the most heinous crime. This man should be hanged.
Right. So you are absolutely right.
But let me just come in here. A study conducted in India in 2007 said that 1 out of 2 children in India are abused, and most of them are abused by known people. So when you're talking about a sexual assault on a girl child, most of these abuses, whether it is a female child or a male child, it is by a known person. Now the point here that I'd like to bring in is, maybe the legal brains can bring more clarity to this than I would. Why are we talking about this under the MTP Act? Why are we talking about an abortion? Because the moment you talk about abortion, you're talking about terminating the life of the fetus inside.
Yeah,
this is already, and that is why you are stuck in this MTP Act, which says beyond 20 weeks, one of the reasons you're not allowed is because the fetus has reached an age of viability. Here the point is, what about this 10-year-old child? Is it in her interest to let the pregnancy continue?
Right.
The moment you came to know, the moment you came to know about it, as a pediatrician, you would recommend that.
One second, I just want to bring in.
If you read the order which has been passed by Honorable Supreme Court on Monday, you are very right. That is the exact question which Honorable Supreme Court has posed.
No, but I just want to, one second, I just want to bring in Karuna Nundy. Karuna, the fact that Alakh Srivastava said the courts have their hands tied because this is what the law says. This is not exactly what the law says. The law has room for exceptions. It says when the pregnancy is alleged by a pregnant woman to have been caused by rape, the anguish caused by such a pregnant woman pregnancy shall be presumed to constitute grave injury to the mental health of the pregnant woman. It doesn't, unfortunately, list out what might happen in case the victim of rape is a minor, in this case a child. It also says no pregnancy of a woman who has not attained the age of 18 shall be terminated except with consent of her guardian. There is no room in this law for a rape victim who is a minor, and which is why the court should have made perhaps an exception in this case, or maybe we should have rules that specify. Yes, Karuna, please go ahead.
Just one particular thing, which is that I think what I think the lawyer that's representing the 10-year-old was perhaps speaking to is the fact that the law does not give discretion to the trial court. However, in their constitutional and their larger residuary jurisdiction. The constitutional courts, the High Court and the Supreme Court, have this jurisdiction. Now, of course, the difficulty is that to approach the High Court and the Supreme Court for the average person is difficult, it's expensive, it takes a long time. And so, therefore, in any case, as someone was pointing out quite correctly, 20 weeks is a very conservative deadline in any case. That's one issue. And I think that, you know, challenging the law and striking down the law in view of the fact that it is, you know, it essentially violates the bodily integrity of a woman to force her, obviously this is sort of the most egregious end of the spectrum, right? When you have a 10-year-old who's a rape victim and whose life is endangered. But then you also have the average woman. When the average woman is carrying a child beyond, say, 20 weeks and wishes to abort without any threat to her life, there is no reason that that should not happen. There are various judgments now by the Supreme Court on bodily integrity, you know, speaking to bodily integrity. And obiter, anything that is said in a Supreme Court judgment is binding on a High Court. And so therefore that particular provision needs to be challenged, and it's not clear to me that that particular provision has been challenged in order to strike it down.
No, but the Supreme...
And of course, primarily, you know, originally this law was enacted in order to be somewhat protective of women, you know, but perhaps it was, I mean, I think it was definitely over paternalistic. At the same time, I will say that I don't think that, so, you know, it's very difficult for courts to legislate in this manner and sort of make these guidelines. Of course, in the Vishakha case, where there was no where there was a lacuna and the government had failed to make sexual harassment illegal, the government did so. In Anuj Garg, the Supreme Court has said that you know, laws have to be interpreted in light of international conventions, and, you know, fundamental rights have to be interpreted in light of international conventions and these various rights, right? The difficulty, of course, here is that we have a law here that is bad, that is incorrect, and the government has failed to act.
Government Sujay?
Yeah. No, so therefore all these discussions that are happening, and in a very healthy debate, now Mr. Srivastava is going to represent in the Supreme Court, and all right-minded lawyers who have something to add and assist the court should appear before the court in their capacity as citizens, and also in view of the fact that they are lawyers. And I'm sure that the Supreme Court will take into consideration each and every aspect. See, listen, we cannot envisage every possible circumstance on earth. But today we have this burning topic before the Apex Court. Apex Court has immediately heard it. And therefore, I am 100% sure that the Supreme Court will lay down such guidelines after taking into consideration all facts. The doctors on the panel also have contributed. So Mr. Srivastava has heard everything. And I'm sure when he presents it before the Chief Justice,
right.
I'm sure they'll take it.
I have one question. Let me bring in Ramakanth Gaur, please. Ramakanth Gaur, I might be...
I want to make a statement here.
Yes.
You know, just
I would like to share with everyone.
If the girl is not given the right to deliver now, we are giving her a death sentence.
They have already applied their minds to this, and they should go before the court. They should give it to Mr. Srivastava.
Yeah. So the gynecologist, we just had Dr. Abha Majumdar say this is a death sentence to this child if she is not allowed to terminate immediately. I just want to bring in Ramakanth Gaur. Ramakanth Gaur, I'm not a lawyer, but the Supreme Court is also at this point examining the right to privacy. My question is this: the relationship or the questions or the advice that a doctor gives a patient, especially in matters like this, are extremely private. Should this also be examined, the right to choose, the right to make decisions over one's own body, whether rape survivor or not, whether minor or not, whether, like Karuna pointed out, a woman who is above the age of 18 who has simply made a decision for whatever reason, should there be a sort of angle of privacy to this, where we don't have to, in this public manner, knock on the doors of the court, approach the High Courts and Supreme Courts? Should there be an angle here of right to life, right to privacy as well?
See, a 3-judges bench of Supreme Court has already held earlier that right to make reproductive choice is a right equable as right to live. So right to personal liberty includes the right to make reproductive choices. So this is already held. This right is already vested in any citizen of India. What is concerning here is that the medical science has evolved with the jet speed, whereas the law of the land is not evolving with the snail's pace. The parliamentarians of this country are sitting over the debate of enhancing this age, that is 20 weeks from 24 or 26 weeks, but it is not happening. They are busy in their own issues, they are busy in blaming and shaming each other. So the parliament is not functioning whilst it has to make an early decision on this issue. That's a cause of concern for me now. So in that light, this case would be examined and the policy or the guidelines should be framed in this very case itself, so that at least the trauma of the rape victim is stopped.
Right. I want to bring in a scary statistic. We're discussing this case because it has upset every single person in the country.
Because it's an
extreme case. But BBC recently gave a report that India has the maximum number of sexually traumatized or sexually molested minors. Every 13 hours, one under 10-year-old child is getting raped. So you can expect that every 13 hours there's a possibility of such a situation recurring. So we don't want this, we are having this big debate. We cannot sit and debate every single issue that's going to happen. Unfortunately, we are not working around the entire support system. Where is our sex education? Where is our teaching of these young children about good touch and bad touch? Where is our children of adolescents being trained in school? Where are we talking to them about sex education? Whenever we as our Federation of Gynecologists has approached almost every single school, we are turned away from, saying you can talk about nutrition, you can talk about menstrual hygiene, but do not mention the word sex education to these children. We have been told time and time again. So what happens when all this is going on? Women are actually realizing that there's no point going to doctors. Doctors' hands are also tied because after 20 weeks, we do not have the option of offering this termination of pregnancy, even if they may be severely critically damaged child or the mother's health may be in danger. We really can't do anything except going to court. So people are seeking unsafe abortions. Every 2 hours, a woman is dying of an unsafe abortion in this country. What are we doing about it?
So I just like to come in here what Dr. Pai just said. When we talk about abuse of children, please let's not think that it's only the girl child which gets abused. It's also the male child which gets abused. Now coming to this particular unfortunate incident about this poor child, let's not make the law regarding MTP the issue that we are debating about her life. Let's not use her life and her unfortunate situation to clarify the MTP law in the Supreme Court elsewhere, with all due respect to the law. Let's look at it. Let me give you an example, maybe not an exact example, but unfortunate example. What if a 10-year-old girl child has a cyst or a tumor or any such disease in her tummy, in her abdomen? What will we do? If we feel letting that tumor grow in her child is going to be harmful for that child, we will operate and take it out right away. Let's look at this. This is a 10-year-old child who has been abused. Why are we going towards an MTP Act and all those things?
The law of the land is like that.
Dr. Majumdar said very clearly, this is a death sentence for this child. Why are you allowing a medical condition to complicate this child's life? Get the child out. And then if this child has crossed the age of viability, let the neonatologist take care of it. Let the child be sent to NIC.
Our hands are tied. Our hands are absolutely tied.
So like Alakh Srivastava pointed out, the pregnancy was reported at 25 weeks. We've already lost 2 weeks. Dr. Majumdar, we've already lost 2 weeks to the process and to the law that is laid down. First you approach the police, then you approach the district court, then you go to Supreme Court.
I'll tell you, abortion is a punishable offence under IPC. Abortion in one hand is an MTP Act is there, which is going to give some exceptions. So doctors are, unless the law is amended, doctors will be always afraid.
Okay. One second. Alakh Srivastava, one second. Dr. Majumdar, so this is Alok rightfully pointed out that an abortion without the court's permission is punishable by law. So no doctor can actually do anything about it.
So that is why you require amendment in the law. And I'd like to share with all of you a very pertinent thing. I must share with you. In 1993, Honorable Supreme Court passed a judgment in Delhi domestic case. There was Delhi Domestic Women's Association case in which Honorable Supreme Court passed a detailed judgment, and Honorable Supreme Court said that for victim compensation of rape victims, let us have injuries board, let us have boards at every district of India.
And okay. Let me just, all right, fair enough. Let me just bring in Dr. Majumdar. One second. Dr. Majumdar, go ahead. You said you hope that tomorrow when the Supreme Court hears the case, in 1 hour, that there is there is justice and there's action and there's the procedure that needs to actually happen to save this girl's life.
Is saved of her life. Yeah.
But what
I'll
about
definitely
the lives
request Dr. Majumdar also
Every 1 hour
if
is
she can kindly
important
join
for her.
me in
Every
Supreme
passing
Court
day is taking her towards a very complicated.
Yeah, I think
Ma'am, I'll request
the
you to
doctor as
kindly
gynecologist has said that there is a danger for her continuing the pregnancy. She has to just terminate it. Why do we have to think about an MTP Act?
One second.
I would definitely request Dr. Majumdar also to join me on Friday.
I'm ready to be there. When is
the case is listed on Friday, and I'll
on
share
Friday. You tell me the time. Friday, I'm going to Maulana Azad to take an exam.
28 July, 28 July,
the fellowship
and
exam for reproductive medicine on Friday.
Okay, all right. So what we'll do, one second. We'll after the show, my team will facilitate a conversation between the two of you. We'll take that offline. Let me just, one second, Alakh Srivastava, my team will facilitate a conversation between you and Dr. Majumdar and anyone else you want to reach out to who might be of assistance to you on Friday when the court is hearing. On Friday when the court is hearing this case. Let me just bring in other voices.
Of some experts already.
Yes. Yeah. Let me just bring in a lot of people calling in right now. Dr. Mandar Ranade is on the phone line from Pune, a gynecologist, I understand. Go ahead, Dr. Ranade.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me? Go ahead. Very quickly. We can.
Yeah. I first of all congratulate Mirror Now for taking this important issue, because amending this MTP Act is a long-standing demand of all the associations. But I could not resist keeping my view about Dr. Nikhil Datar's view. I totally disagree with that. He said that internationally it is accepted that pregnancy can be terminated any time. But here in this case, considering the age of the victim and about the judicial delay and what will be the procedure henceforth, she will be landing at a certain weeks of pregnancy where termination of pregnancy, according to my view, will be dangerous to her life. Apart from that, he said about hysterectomy, but considering the complications of hysterectomy leading to obstetric hysterectomy or hemorrhage or other things, I think in this case we should wait up to the lady gets, the victim gets to full term, and then we can take the action, because anyways the complications of abortion are more dangerous than getting that lady delivered.
No, but
the girl
who is aborting her? We have to deliver her immediately.
Yes, we have to deliver her. Let's not talk about abortion. We have to deliver her. Dr. Majumdar, you need to take this stand. We are not aborting. We are delivering her. And so please do this in the court.
Yeah.
Don't get into this muddle of the MTP Act for this child's sake.
We cannot abort her. We have to deliver her.
And Dr. Datar, this question was specifically to Nikhil Datar. Nikhil Datar?
She will die if she aborts.
Long enough to complete the full term pregnancy.
Let's not make this case an excuse to clear the MTP Act. Let's save this child.
No.
You're absolutely right. But
absolutely no.
Sorry, Neeta,
she will die if she goes to
Sujay Kantawala has
may I just read what the Supreme Court, just give me a minute. Before the matter is taken up for hearing on 28th July, the member secretary, after having followed the procedure and obtained due permission of at least one of the parents of the child, shall have the child examined at PGI Chandigarh from a board of doctors on 26th July, so as to affirm one way or the other whether the health of the child concerned, who is stated to be aged 10 years, and also that of the fetus, would be adversely affected if the pregnancy is continued for the full term. And that report has to be submitted before the Supreme Court in a sealed cover. So this is the burning issue before the court.
Yeah, so I have a question. Suppose the life of this 10-year-old child is endangered, but the life of the fetus is not endangered. Will you continue the pregnancy? Not at all. The first right is the life of this 10-year-old child. Let's not even look at it like a right of a woman. Let's not get into women's rights. It's a child's right.
Absolutely.
All right. Let me just take one more phone call. Neeta Shah is on the phone line from Mumbai. Neeta Shah, go ahead. Neeta Shah.
I am a counselor also out here. We are not being sensitive about this person who's really gone under rape. She has been raped. Now that she realized that she is already pregnant, we need to also look at what kind of life this child will have if he is born. Have you ever thought of that? Imagine the mother doesn't want him. I mean, what kind of life this child will have? Let us be a little bit sensitive rather than just stick on to the rules and laws. Have you ever thought of it? Are you going to take care of this child? When we are discussing somebody else's such personal matters, we also need to look at that person's perspective.
Sorry. Okay, very quickly, Ashok Johnson. Ashok Johnson also on air from Mumbai. Ashok Johnson, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Faye. This is a very disturbing and uneasy debate, I must say, but very important nonetheless. The entire episode of this crime that has happened, I really want to know from the legal experts over there that from 1971 till date, which is close to half a century old law, have there been any similar cases in the past which came up?
There was a similar case.
And what kind of judgment was given? Because apparently
many of them,
the law didn't change. So are we to believe that
so many of them
on 3rd of July
who suffered in silence?
There are about 11 cases.
On 3rd of July 2017.
Just let me complete.
Go ahead.
There are about
another panelist who said that no doctor will go ahead and do the abortion because of the current law. So are we to believe that in the last 47 years, a child who has gone through this has never actually got a child aborted? So she's actually carrying a child which she never wanted. So.
Right, Ashok, you very good points. I'm going to take your question to Nikhil Datar. Dr. Nikhil Datar has been fighting this for a while. The truth is, like Dr. Pai had pointed out, a lot of illegal abortions take place then. A lot of unsafe illegal abortions take place because the actual doctors in the actual clinics will face criminal procedures if they actually conduct an abortion after 20 weeks. Dr. Datar, to the question of how many cases have we seen in the last couple of decades that should have actually received justice and received proper medical aid?
So there have been altogether there have been close to about 10 or 11 cases which have been fought whereby termination has been asked for beyond 20 weeks, and except 2 such kind of cases, in all other cases the Supreme Court has allowed termination of pregnancy. As a matter of fact, 3 of them were rape survivors and they were all beyond 20 weeks, and Supreme Court has constantly and continuously stretched the limit of 20 weeks in all such kinds of situations. The Supreme Court on many of these occasions have said that the immense amount of mental anguish has to be considered as almost equivalent to risk to the life of the woman, and Supreme Court has been doing this on and off on a regular basis. Almost an experience of about 11 cases that we have so far that we have been witnessing, and another 3 or 4 that will come up in the coming next week or so in the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court is being very sensitive. They have been doing this very regularly and methodically, and that's why the only question that remains to be answered is that how many times do you require to keep on coming back to the Supreme Court? Why can't we not have a law whereby we don't require to take personal matters to the public, in the public domain, discuss them threadbare and only then get the permission? So why do you want women to get themselves troubled all the time, and only after fighting they get their right of abortion? That's the only question which I would want to kind of put forth. But I'm extremely happy that Supreme Court has been taking a very proactive step.
And you are very right that everyone cannot approach to Supreme Court. There are people living in the remotest part of the country, and there are people belonging to poorest section of the society. Everyone cannot. So I'll tell you, since 2014 the amendment is pending with the government. There is no hint
today,
that it is going to be. So what Supreme Court is doing nowadays is definitely exceptional. But government has to take up this issue in a very sensitive manner. Government has to amend it. And now I really wish, and I'm praying to God also, that on Friday when this matter is taken up, because apart from this specific issue, I've also raised 2 generic issues. To provide a permanent board at every, or constitute permanent board at every district, and also to amend the section 3 and 5 immediately. So I really believe, because notice has been issued to the Union of India also, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Law. So I'm really wishing, and I'm also inviting all my friends from the legal and medical background.
I think even a board is too much. Why should a woman who is undergoing the trauma of having conceived, forget rape, even if she has conceived through contraceptive failure, even if sometimes you conceive in lactational amenorrhea, when a mother is breastfeeding, she doesn't get a period. Sometimes months or 6 months, 8 months. Many of them conceive in that stage. So we're not only talking about criminal situations, we're not even talking about drastic situations like today. Why should a woman even have to approach a board for deciding about her abortion? Forget Supreme Court alone. Right. And as the Federation of Gynacs, we've been speaking about it for many years now, talking about how safe now terminations of pregnancy has become.
More comment to
and
make
we can
on
definitely offer it till much later.
Right. Go ahead.
20 weeks law has definitely become redundant as of today.
I want to make one comment on one of the guests who said, what about the baby who's going to be born? If there is a question...
Yes, Dr. Majumdar, go ahead.
If there is a question between the life of the mother and child, a lot of times we come under situations where we are asked to say, choose one person. It's either the mother or the child can survive. I think always the dais goes towards the mother. Absolutely. So at the moment, this 10-year-old mother is more important than her baby. Yes, we agree that he's reached a viable stage. This baby may survive, but then this baby is always second to the little girl who's pregnant right now. Her life is more important to the society, to us, and to humanity as such, you know, to see that this little child doesn't lose her life in this debate of ours that whether she should have a termination.
Right. Dr. Majumdar would exactly like to continue what you're saying. That's exactly the point. Let us not treat this as a woman's issue under the MTP Act. Let's look at this child who cannot survive, cannot be healthy. If she continues with this pregnancy, let's deliver the child. If the fetus survives, that's the issue in the NICU. Let's get this girl child. Let us not use this girl, a 10-year-old girl child, to debate about MTP Act. This does not certify under that.
We've run out of time, unfortunately. I have to wrap up this discussion, but we've brought this up in the past and we will continue to bring it up while our faith rests in the Honorable Supreme Court that is examining this issue and will decide what is best right now for this 10-year-old child who has had to survive. Remember, we're using the word survive repeated rape from a maternal uncle in her own home, is then going to have to survive what society is going to fling at her for the rest of her life, is going to have to then also survive the system and the laws and the courts. Our heart goes out to her. But our questions also go out to our central government that has been sitting on a modification of the abortion law since 2014. Where are your priorities? You have had the time to look at what very carefully happens in cow slaughter. You have put out a very elaborate cow slaughter law that you are now having to relook at because the Supreme Court has asked you to do so. Have you not had the time to look at the abortion laws? Because this is the kind of outdated nonsense that it puts women and children through in this country. As always, cattle outstrip women and children in priority for us one more time. Relook at this law. Return to us as individuals the right and the ownership of our own bodies and our own choices. We should have the ability to make these choices in the privacy of a conversation with our doctors, not at the doors of the courts, not at the doors of Parliament. This is a choice that should be left to a woman alone and nobody else. And in this day and age, if this is where we are, shame on you that you haven't looked at this law more closely and you haven't amended it. Shame on you that you put cattle slaughter first. Shame on you that this is what women and children have to go through in this country. Do it and do it now. And one hopes that the Supreme Court in its wisdom will instruct the government to amend the law as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.